Today, at the suggestion of a couple of our listeners, we dig out of the many layers of snow and nuance in the 1979 spy movie, Avalanche Express. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
And we're ready to start the dig. But before we do, take a moment to subscribe to our show and tell your friends about it too. That helps us a ton. Get it? Snow. Here, let's go. All right. Avalanche Express has a pre-title sequence that is entirely spoken in Russian with subtitles. At a Russian security meeting, it is clear that their computer systems have been breached, and we see that a high-ranking official, Marenkov, played by Robert Shaw, and by the way, this was Robert Shaw's last movie before he died. Okay, so everyone is speaking Russian, and obviously Shaw's voice is dubbed here. We're hoping here it wouldn't be dubbed the rest of the way, but...
Well, you don't think that was really Robert Shaw speaking that fluent to Russian?
No.
You know, the other thing is when it started, I'm kind of like, did I have the wrong language selected?
Yeah, but sadly, Shaw died before completion and was not well during the filming. So his scenes were dubbed in post-production, mostly by Robert Rieti. Now, Rieti's voice was used in 8 of the James Bond movies before, so he's best known for replacing the voice of Adolfo Celli in Thunderball 1965 and Tesoro Tamba in You Only Live Twice. And some scenes could not be shot because of Shaw's condition, leaving somewhat noticeable gaps in the story. They used doubles at times, but the final product certainly suffered from Shaw's death and not hearing his voice.
You know, for me, the first time I watched this, I'm like, he looks weird there in a couple of these scenes.
Yes.
And now we know why.
Yeah.
Okay, so the concept of the story is there's a Russian agent who wants to defect to the West, and that a U.S. agent named Wargrave is assigned to get him out to the West. And he's going to take a train across Europe. Wargrave is played by Lee Marvin. And to me, this plot sounds similar to the first part of Koskov's defection in the 1987 James Bond movie, The Living Daylights. It has a similar feel. In both movies, the agent is responsible for getting the Soviet or Russian agent out of Russian control.
Yeah.
And I've got to believe that The Living Daylights leaned on Avalanche Express for part of its plot points.
Yeah. Now, Avalanche Express is built on the platform of Cold War paranoia, of course, 1979 this is. And it does involve some great train scenes and thrilling moments, a la From Russia with Love, and it displays some nice set pieces in the Alps. Some of it is gorgeous. Now, sometimes in movies, the train, and we've seen trains in lots of spy movies, it's a microcosm of the world. It's a contained environment where lots of the action takes place. Agatha Christie in her mysteries was a master at creating these isolating places, whether it's snowed-in trains, the Orient Express, a murder on a ship, a snowed-in ski resort. It's all the same concept. The action is contained in a certain area.
Yeah, now another movie, it wasn't a Christie movie, was The Lady Vanishes, which was a Hitchcock movie.
Great one.
The same type of thing. Now, the train scenes, there's some miniature trains in both movies. I think they actually looked better in the Hitchcock one than in here.
Wow. Okay. All right. I didn't mind them that much here. All right. So the concept of a Soviet defector and the attempt to get them out safely to the West is a common trope. We've seen it. Early on in the movie, there's a reference to an internal mole in the Soviet hierarchy, but it really never gets mentioned again. So I guess we have to assume that the mole must be the defector. I don't know.
That's how I took it. Yeah.
And Tom, as you mentioned, 8 years later, The Living Daylights, 1987, they had a Soviet defector, and the concept of whether the defectors themselves could be trusted was key to both movies. And we get a whiff of the spy who came in from the cold here, 1965, and Funeral in Berlin, 1966.
Yeah, and I get more than a whiff of Funeral in Berlin in this thing. There's a bunch of little pieces here, because that, again, is a defector who is supposedly going to leave.
Right. All right. Now, the movie could have been better, but it's still very good. We lost Robert Shaw during the production of the movie and the director, Mark Robson, who also died before completion of this movie. Mark Robson knew how to direct action and spy movies, as he had done The Prize in 1963, Von Ryan's Express in 1965, Earthquake in 1974. So this was a big loss. Now, when I was in graduate school at Marquette University, we had a couple of bars that were our favorites. One was called the Ardmore, and at times you can get a schooner, 16 ounces of beer for 25 cents. And it was a decent bar. The other favorite was called the Avalanche. And it was a scuzzy bar, and so much beer spilled on the floors that there were naked beer slides going on all the time.
You know, I really don't want to think of you doing a naked beer slide.
I never did the beer slide. And the same 16-ounce schooner of beer was 15 cents. Yeah, 15 cents. That was a while ago, and those are not always the prices, but the Avalanche brings back many memories. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, and Dan, that was actually a few years before the release of the Avalanche Express. So you were doing your Avalanche early.
Yeah. All right. A big shout out to some of our listeners who gave us feedback on our Facebook page and some of our episodes. So a shout out to Pietro Rossi, who gave us feedback on 2 recent episodes, and to Jim Phelps as well. Thanks. Please keep the feedback coming. We love it. All right. Back to the movie. In the title sequence, the first thing we get is a train shot. Well, we know we have a train, since the movie is Avalanche Express. And we know, since this came out in 1979, that many spy movies before it had employed trains as a major part of their stories, from the 39 Steps of 1935, Secret Agent 1936, through the modern James Bond movies, Mission Impossible, and beyond. So, not surprising. Trains and spy movies, they just kind of go together.
It's rare to find a spy movie without a train.
Yeah. And here, the train is traversing a snowy landscape as solid, strong music plays during the title sequence. This is a very long sequence of the train moving through mountainous and snowy terrain before it fades into a train station scene. I thought it was a little too long, actually. All right, we have a couple of actors who were big in James Bond movies in this movie as well. Robert Shaw, we mentioned, of course, he was Grant in From Russia with Love. And another from that very same movie, Vladek Sheybal, who played Kronstein in that one, has a smaller role here.
And it's impressive to see these actors in a movie 16 years later, another spy movie. But you missed one other actor who was in both From Russia with Love and Avalanche Express. And there is only
really?
one other.
Really?
Yeah. There's an actor named Donald Stewart. He had uncredited roles in both movies playing agents. If you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't have missed him because he just was playing just a regular old agent.
All right, I missed that one. All right, cool. We have other interesting actors here, too. We get Horst Buchholz, who you don't hear about very often. Here he plays Julian Schulten, but Buchholz was also terrific in the 1960 movie The Magnificent Seven as the young Chico, one of the 7. Great
And
movie.
I know you love that movie.
Yeah, that's a great
Absolutely.
movie. Yeah.
Now, we also have Joe Namath in this movie as Matt Leroy.
That's cool.
Namath was the cocky New York Jets American football quarterback who boldly predicted that his team would beat the heavily favored Colts in Super Bowl III in 1969. And he did.
He was
Now,
cocky.
he was kind of a swinger. He also portrayed that as well. He was kind of a ladies' man, loved the New York nightlife. The New York press called him Broadway Joe, and that name stuck.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting piece of casting here, but I do have to say, casting him was an interesting casting choice, but because he really wasn't that strong an actor. And sorry, Joe, if you hear this, but my bet you would agree, this wasn't your strongest performance.
He wasn't an actor, really. He was
a football player.
Performer. He's a performer of football. I thought he actually did pretty well here, actually. I thought he, for his role, I thought he was okay.
Oh, I kind of got this feeling of, oh, I'm the athlete. I'm playing this guy now, and I'm cool.
It didn't bother me at all. All right, now we got Linda Evans. She was a star already, having been in the Old West TV show The Big Valley from 1965 to 1969. And a couple of years after this movie, she was on Dynasty from 1981 to 1989, another very popular TV show. And then you got Mike Connors. He was the macho sleuth Joe Mannix on the hot TV show Mannix. 4 times nominated for an Emmy, and he won a Golden Globe in 1969. Mannix was a cool show, and he was excellent in it. And by the way, Lalo Schifrin did the jazzy music for that show. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, now when he came on the screen here, I almost jumped out of my chair. I love it when I see somebody who I know as a character, and I only know Mike Connors as Mannix, right?
Yeah.
He's so ingrained in my mind. So you don't see him in too much other stuff. So it was really cool for me to see him in a different role, although he still was an authority role. But still, it was great to see that.
Yeah. And of course, you got the star, Lee Marvin, who is a tremendous actor and has been in some fabulous movies and in great roles, like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, Cat Ballou, 1965, which made him famous, for which he won an Academy Award for Best Actor, and really the only one to win one for playing dual roles in the same movie. And he was in, of course, The Dirty Dozen, 1967, The Iceman Cometh, and a whole lot more. So he's solid.
And he headlines a very strong cast. And we get great performances. And I think you and I disagree on this from Maximilian Schell. And
Well,
my favorite.
I like him. I liked him.
Okay. And my favorite Slugworth, Gunther Meisner, who played Kreutzmann in Funeral in Berlin, Hassler in The Quiller Memorandum, and General Orloff's aide in an uncredited role in Octopussy. But I know him from Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory playing
Yeah.
Slugworth. He is always, in my mind, Slugworth.
Yeah, and
He's usually playing a bad guy, and he is here as well, playing Mueller.
he plays Mueller. All right.
Now, other actors who appeared both in Avalanche Express and other James Bond movies include Richard Marner, who played General Prochko in Avalanche Express, and he was a Soviet submarine crewman in The Spy Who Loved Me. Cyril Shops plays Sedov here, and he played Dr. Beckman in The Spy Who Loved Me. And finally, we get Sky Dumont, who played Philip John in Avalanche Express, and Klaus in Never Say Never Again.
Cool. All right.
There's some Bond crossover here.
Yeah, we got a strong cast. So let's move on past the actors. We have some things to look out for in the Avalanche Express. Aha, of course, you got to look out for things in the Avalanche Express.
Yeah,
The
look
trains-
out, it's an avalanche and it's express.
Yeah, we know we got trains. We know we got an avalanche. The train stops in Basel, a station in Switzerland near the borders of Switzerland, France, and Germany. We get quick shots of Elsa Lang, Linda Evans, and then Matt Leroy, Joe Namath. Now, we are intrigued by a worker in the train entering a compartment or a water closet, I think it was a WC, locking it, and then working on the pipes under the sink. He retrieves something from the pipe. Do we have a MacGuffin? He exits the train, and he and Elsa are walking in opposite directions, and he bumps into her. A brush pass? Yes. There's something in her open bag that he dropped. Okay, we have spy stuff already happening, and that's cool. And now she boards a train.
And I like how they use real spy techniques here. So we get this brush pass with these bags. The whole thing, getting the thing out of the pipe is a dead drop, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of these things scattered throughout the movie. I think they're well done and add a level of credibility to the spy aspect of this movie.
Yeah, I do too. Now, the guy who took the object from the pipe, he's followed and he's knocked down, and two guys are looking for the thing that he took. So we have a formidable pursuit in the works. Of course, you need that. It's a spy movie.
Well, you've got to have a pursuit.
Yeah.
So as they take him to the car, Leroy opens the car door and disrupts the kidnapping. He's got a few of his guys to help him here, and he throws the two guys who pursued the train worker into the back of a van. Apparently they're Russian, Kremlin guys, and Leroy runs and boards a moving train at the last minute. These people like to hop between different modes of transportation.
Yeah. Now, you said you didn't think Joe Namath did a good job. I thought here he was perfect. He had a cowboy hat on. He had this rough suede jacket on, and he acted like a tough guy, like a cowboy, knocking down guys. I thought he did pretty good. Anyway, he finds Elsa. He picks up the object while passing her compartment on the train, and he goes to another compartment. Wow. From pipe to Elsa to Leroy in under 10 minutes of the movie. That's pretty good.
That thing really does get around.
Yeah.
And then the train stops in Zurich. So I think we have a feel for the story, at least a little bit now.
Yeah, a little.
We don't yet know about the defection or what this object is, but we know more than one party wants it, and they've set it up pretty well.
Yeah. Now, Leroy gets off the train. He walks up to a kiosk, a concession stand. He drops his bag with the object in it next to an identical bag. And the camera pans up, and we see it is Wargrave, Lee Marvin, next to him. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is another fairly common spy trope that we see in movies. I call it a bag pass, and it's what they do here. The one guy sets down an identical looking bag, and the other guy picks it up mistakenly.
It's a variation of a dead drop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've seen this exact move in Mission Impossible, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Bourne Identity, and a whole host of spy movies. Fairly common trope that we see.
Yeah, so We know as soon as we see the two identical bags, hey, another drops in the works. This object will be hard to track. Spy stuff. Yeah, I like it. And it continues as Wargrave now hops aboard a private jet with the object where he meets up with Holler, Mike Connors. Now, Harry Wargrave, that's his full name, he hands him the package. And it's a tape of sorts, it looks like. And Holler says, let's patch this in and get it decoded. And we see Elsa on the plane too. I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, unfortunately, much of this movie is obvious, and it's obvious what they're setting up here.
Okay, all right. Okay. Elsa and Harry have some kind of history, as Holler says. I thought you two would be happy to see each other, kiss and make up, he says. Wow. We saw a similar thing in the movie Hopscotch a year later with Walter Matthau and Glenda Jackson, 1980, which we decoded. As the tape is decoded here, we learn of Operation Winter Harvest, a Russian program of biological warfare. Wargrave is to protect this person, Angelo, and Elsa has been Angelo's primary contact. So is Angelo a code name? We don't know yet, but okay.
Yeah, we're not sure.
We're hearing it. And then there's a nice transition to three monks walking in Milan, Italy. We see Wargrave and Matt Leroy in this art museum waiting for someone. Who, we wonder.
Yeah, and I liked how they did that thing with the monks. It's a great way to do a disguise. It's great protection. And in a place like Milano, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah. And all of a sudden we hear a voice. Angelo here. It's General Marenkov. Of course, it's a spy movie. Things don't always go as planned. And there will be attempts, of course, to stop this defection of the Soviet Marenkov.
Yeah, now I like this scene a lot because it's done at La Scala Opera House in Milano. Yes. And now I've been to La Scala, I've done the tour. It looks the same. You got all the booths and stuff like that. So I don't know how much of it was just set to see the inside and then they filmed the rest of it in a soundstage. Who knows? But it looked a lot like that.
Yeah.
And we don't get as much character from the location, though, like we did in the opera scenes in Quantum of Solace or Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. But it does showcase the beauty of La Scala. And in The Man Who Knew Too Much, it wasn't an opera, it was an orchestra, but it was a similar type of setting. And it's a great place, again, to contain people, but have all these nooks and crannies for people to hide.
Yeah. And it was they were practicing. I think there was rehearsal going on.
Yeah, they were rehearsing it.
Yeah. So it wasn't a live performance. So it's a little calmer. So you got to pay attention to the monks, though, because they could be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another scene kind of made me laugh, and it was the car chase through the piazza in front of the Duomo di Milano or the Milan Cathedral. Every time I've been there, that piazza is just packed with people. And watch how they handled the crowds during the filming of this. It really put a smile on my face. It was pretty interesting how they just kind of herded everybody to like 3 sections. And okay, you all stand here. You all stand here.
Yeah, I've been to Milano too, and to the Duomo. And if you're ever in Milano, you have to go see Da Vinci's The Last Supper. It's in the refectory of the Dominican convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie. All right.
And that was one of those things that, like, when you see the Mona Lisa, it's so tiny. And a lot of times when you see these works of art, like, oh, that isn't as big. This was not tiny. It was a big
wall.
thing. So, yeah,
it's a whole wall with a doorway through it too.
Yeah.
All right. What I liked about what we have seen so far in this spy thriller is that the unfolding of the story details the process of spying. The planned, detailed execution of the defection is very believable, I think. And it seems like the way it could or would really happen, which is excellent. So that part I thought was done really well.
Yep. And I said earlier, I thought they were doing the setup well.
Yeah.
They're continuing it up to this point. And this is the point where I think the movie loses it a little bit for me. They've got the setup fairly solid, but then I'm not exactly sure they took it where I might have gone.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see where you would have gone and where they went. All right. And even at only about 18 minutes into the story, I want to give props to the sound team because the sound effects I thought were very real, very accurate, and very well done. Church bells ringing, screeching tires, the tires on wet pavement, the engine sounds. I thought it was all great. And other small details that they paid attention to, like the van screeching around a corner and two pedestrians are on the walk, they stop and put their backs against the wall to protect themselves from getting hit by the van. And then seconds later,
You would have jumped out of the way too, Dan.
well, yeah, no, I thought that was great. But then seconds later, this is the part I really like. A pursuing car screeches around the same corner, and the two pedestrians had walked a couple of feet more, obviously thinking the danger was over as the van was gone, naturally not anticipating another pursuit vehicle. And again, they react the same way. This directing and execution I thought was superb. These kinds of details made it feel real. I love that.
Yeah, and that was another thing that put a smile on my face because it's almost comical, but it's not. Right? But
yeah,
it's kind of like, oh, yeah, whoa, wait, we're going back
real.
again.
Yeah,
Yep.
It was real. Now, not only was the tape we talked about in the beginning switched to so many different people to prevent tracking, the spies with the defecting Marenkov also switched vans at certain points, again, making this all believable. And again, we see something like this in The Funeral in Berlin, 1965. So
It's funny you said that because I wrote the exact same note down. This has to be an homage to that scene in Funeral in Berlin with the hearse swap. But here it's a van swap. I mean, the vehicle switch is used to help with the defection in both movies.
All right. There is some good dialogue, too, which seems to flow in at certain points of the movie. It's not all great dialogue. But at one point, the defector, Marenkov, says, "This is one of your safe houses I didn't know about." And Wargrave responds, "Well, if you had, it wouldn't be."
I thought that was the best line in the movie.
I thought it was a good
It was
line.
just kind of like, yeah, we understand.
Yeah. All right. And now we know that if they get this guy Bunin, they can stop this Operation Winter Harvest biological warfare thing. So there is an import-export office in front in Zurich, which is, of course, a spy office. Import-export. It really makes you wonder if there are any real import-export companies out there because so many spy fronts are import-export. Anyway.
Well, of course, there's the real universal exports, Dan.
Yes, that one. There you go. All right. And the
Genco
Soviets,
olive oil imports. I don't know.
yeah. And the Soviets now know Marenkov is defecting and that he knows too much. So they got to stop him. So the chase is
So he's
on.
He's the defector who knows too much.
Yeah. They want to eliminate Marenkov at any cost. And naturally, that's the movie. All right. I like the camera angles, and we get some point of view shots as well from inside the car through the windshield and more. So I thought they were kind of creative with some of the shots. They decide the best way to get Marenkov out for his defection is by train. And that, to me, that seemed like a bad idea, but that's what they think. There's a point before they board the train where it appears someone has been shot.
At about 25 minutes into this movie, one of the big name actors, so we mentioned a bunch of actors that you knew their names.
Yeah.
One of them gets shot dead 25 minutes into this movie. And at least we assume he's dead. But if we think about this is a big star getting taken out early in a movie. And we've seen this before, and it's usually very jolting. I mean, we're thinking, they couldn't kill him or her off so early. It's so-and-so. That actor or actress can't be off now. Right?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the character's really dead. Think of Janet Leigh in Psycho, Drew Barrymore in Scream, or even Steven Seagal in Executive Decision. But other times, and often in spy movies, it's a ruse. Think of John Voight's character Jim Phelps getting killed early in Mission Impossible, or James Bond's death in You Only Live Twice.
Yeah.
In this latter group of deaths, the big name star isn't dead, it's just a plot point for deception. So, we're not going to tell you which one it is, but which is it here in Avalanche Express?
Yeah.
Is it a real death or is it a ruse? And the fact that the viewer has to ask that question about the death of a big name star early in the movie is what makes this technique so successful.
Yeah. Hey, and Holler says this character is dead. And so, wow. And
Jacob Marley is dead.
Scrooge. And the Soviets know he is dead, and they did not order it. And they know Marenkov is on the train along with a half a dozen of carabinieri. And they have moles on the train. And he says, and a mouse.
Yeah, now,
Okay,
gotta have
all
a
right.
mouse. All right, now, there's a lot of stuff happening here. Things have been switched from person to person to person from the tape's perspective. They go from van to van for the spies.
Yeah.
Now they're switching trains. And besides what we talked about and called out in Funeral in Berlin, the whole train swapping thing we saw in North by Northwest, The Lady Vanishes, The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and others. So
Yeah,
another fairly common trope because it's so effective. It's okay, well, no, now you can't catch me. You're on that train that's going the other direction.
yeah, I like it. All right. Now we see the train here stop in Chiasso, which is on the border of Switzerland and Italy. When we cut to the conductor's cabinet up front, we know something is going to happen, or why would we be seeing this? When the camera is leading us places, we got to pay attention. And we do get a surprise here, but this could have been a much more powerful and developed plot point, I thought, with a bigger payoff for the audience than it was.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's part of my keeping to the thought that
Yeah,
after the thing gets set up, they don't keep things up to the same standard.
yeah. And I like that we get the backstory of how Elsa and Harry Wargrave met through Elsa telling the story to Marenkov, who asked about it. She was recruited by him in Paris. She loved him, but he didn't love her. She asks Marenkov if he has a wife. And he says, I like this line too. Do you like sad stories? He asks. And Elsa says, they're the ones I know. That was another good line. Marenkov tells the story about his wife and his wife dying and so on. She knows that it was not all true and that his wife had actually killed herself because she was not really a member of the Communist Party and she didn't really believe in what Marenkov stood for. So this is why Marenkov is doing what he's doing now, we think. This is his revenge now to defect. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different than Koskov's motivation in The Living Daylights or even Stock's in Funeral in Berlin.
Right. So the Soviets are after him, of course. They're trying to get him out of Europe and to the United States. Soviet agents take over a train control booth and they switch on the red stoplight. There will be an assault on the train and the CIA leaders now know it. And in the ensuing battle, does Marenkov disappear? Or was there a plan? Are they always prepared like the Boy Scouts? Well, no, I don't know. Let's see.
Right. So you mentioned that the signal was red for the train.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
CIA group said they could not just keep going as the power to the train would be cut off.
Yeah, they did say that.
After the battle, the train starts rolling again. And well, we never see anyone go into that control booth and switch the light back to green. I just thought that
Exactly.
to me, that was a little bit of a continuity issue.
I was thinking the same thing. It's like, okay, well, all right, well, let's let it roll. Meanwhile, Bunin, who always has gloves on for some reason, even when smoking, is preparing to disguise himself and board the train at an upcoming station. Obviously, Marenkov would recognize him otherwise, so he's going to disguise himself as this Kolchak guy.
Well, we've seen spies take on disguises in many movies.
That's fine. Earlier, he said smoking is killing him, and when he finds out that the real Kolchak doesn't smoke, he says, that will kill me. So I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, he's dead either way. All right, now, so about these gloves, it could be that villains almost always have something that stands out about them. Blofeld had his cat and scars. Silva had that deformed mouth.
Yeah.
Bunin is a ruthless and meticulous KGB officer. And in spy movies and other movies, gloves can suggest distance and secrecy.
Certainly secrecy, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe this is a symbol of how precise he is, how he's almost like a surgeon when it comes to spy missions. It was rumored that it was Schell's personal choice to wear the gloves as to make Bunin appear cold and untouchable. But it is still weird because they never explain it in the movie. He just has these things on. Maybe he just didn't want to leave fingerprints anywhere.
Yeah, like on his cigarette butts, right? Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was an interesting twist on the character. All right. Leroy is on the train, and Zanbin, too, is also on the train. That's played by Shebal. He confirms a helicopter, hey, we got a helicopter, is spotting for them above and looking for potential trouble. And now perhaps we will have some of the Soviets on skis to do something. I don't know. Wait. There might be explosives involved here. This is a spy movie. Will there be explosions?
Well, it is called Avalanche Express.
Yeah, and any little explosion in the mountain could cause an avalanche. Oh, my gosh. All right.
Okay, now avalanches aren't all that common as a spy movie trope, but we do see one in The Lady Vanishes and in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So it has been used. It's just not that common.
Yeah, but real avalanches are dangerous. And this one looks pretty real. So how'd they do it? Well,
Oh, wait, we're going to go behind the scenes now?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. First of all,
Awesome.
they used miniatures and models. The train destruction and avalanche were largely achieved with scale models, a common 1970s technique also used in the Cassandra Crossing in 1976 and other movies. Miniature trains and mountain landscapes were built, then filmed with falling snow, ice, and debris to simulate the real thing. This guy, John Dykstra, a specialist in special effects, who also worked on Star Wars in 1977, was hired to create the avalanche using these models. He was responsible actually for the Dykstraflex, which was the first motion control photography camera system named after him, although numerous people actually created the camera. But now, you mentioned on Emergency Secret Service, that actually was a real avalanche. It was a carefully controlled event filmed by the Swiss Army, not the producers. So, there is some stock footage here used, but a lot of the avalanche is a clever set piece, and it works pretty well for the final scene.
Yeah, now if you want to hear more about behind the scenes stuff in movies, how they do some of these effects, at the end of August 2025, we released an episode where we interviewed Steve Begg, who was the visual effects supervisor for 3 of the James Bond movies. And he goes into a lot of detail how these type of things are done.
All right, back to Avalanche Express.
Now, they did use practical effects as well. It wasn't just visual effects. For wide shots, tons of artificial snow, which was really just foam, lightweight plaster, and other mixtures. They dumped it onto these miniature sets to create the rushing snow mass that we see.
Yeah.
Although some shots did use real snow for realism.
Yeah. Now, I know all about fake snow. I created an entire Christmas village once for under the tree.
That was beautiful.
Very elaborate. Took 100 hours to make this, and hundreds of pine trees with snow everywhere. And I created the snow myself using ground white marble mixed with a matte medium adhesive and clear glitter sprinkled in there. And you mix it like a paste, and you could put, it's like a plaster almost, and you can put wagon tracks in it and everything, and it dries solid. It was fabulous. And in photos, it looked absolutely real. So practical effects can be effective. And heck, in It's a Wonderful Life in 1946, they won an award for its fake snow. And so by 1979, they should have it down pretty good.
You think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, and it wasn't just the visual effects. There was some creative editing techniques as well. They employed quick cuts between real landscape footage and the model shots, close-ups of the actors in the train set that was rocking.
Yeah.
And so all of this created a sense of real danger while maintaining a sense of realism.
Yeah. They used both on location and studio footage to create this illusion. Many exteriors were shot in European mountain areas like the Dolomites in Italy. The avalanche needed to be controlled since it was a practical effect. And so that was filmed using the models and the fake snow at a studio in Rome called Cinecittà Studios.
Now, by today's standards, we talk about how good this looked.
Yeah.
It looks a bit staged. But for 1979, it was indeed an impressive wow factor here in the movie.
It was.
And especially if you saw it on a big screen. Now, we have to keep in mind that the director, Mark Robeson, died during production, and Monty Hellman had to take over. So I talked about the fact that I thought that the movie wasn't even. The first part was better than the ending. But part of that was because of the post-production issues that had to happen because we had a different director completing the edits and cuts. So Hellman mostly did the restructuring of the movie, making these abrupt cuts, which resulting in some confusing plot points. So, it's one of those things. We got there. This is the situation we're in. We make the best of it. And Jack Cardiff actually directed a couple of the last days of filming.
Yeah.
So this thing was kind of a mess there at the end just because of personnel issues.
Yeah, and you have to have a bit of a willing suspension of disbelief to accept the appearance of the village and the snow scenes. But I think the trees getting ripped up and carried away with the avalanching snow, I thought that was pretty well done. So all in all, it was pretty good for the time. It was, I thought, really well done. Most all of the avalanche shots are close-ups with good sound effects. It does simulate the power of nature and the destruction a real avalanche would cause. So I thought they did a pretty good job on that.
Yeah, and I think that they did a good job also of integrating the real people, right? So you had people in the village needing to get out quickly. And so you have these cross shots of these people. And I thought that really enhanced the danger for us as this onslaught is coming. And the people on the train are doing what they can to get to the safety of the tunnel. And
Yeah.
the chaos ensuing on board, it all adds to heightening the, oh, this is dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the snow hitting the village does create a sense of angst and despair with the thunderous snow crushing the town. So they do a good job there.
Yeah. And even if the train makes it through the avalanche, it's not over. We know that. This is a spy movie, so something else is going to happen.
Well, and it's only an
Meanwhile-
hour and 27 minutes long. Right?
Yeah.
There's got to be more to the movie.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Bunin is disguised now as Kolchak, and he enters this hotel. Now, the train stops in Grundig, and Kolchak is going to board the train. But wait, I know they decoupled some cars and now have to replace the cars since they were lost in the avalanche. But the windows were shot out of many of the cars during that attack. Just the ones they lost, or I don't know.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. Well,
None of the train now looks the same way it did 10 minutes earlier.
yeah. And then we always got to wonder who's conducting the train here. We have to see now. Okay. We know Leroy is still in the conductor's compartment. We see that. All right. Now, anyway, the next stop is Maastricht, Holland. In Schulten, horse buckles boards. And more spy stuff. Hidden weapons are on the train. The Soviets planted them. So they're at it. The Soviets are at it. The train is forced to stop. More Soviet raiders waiting along the tracks. And there's a huge gun battle again. And Marenkov and Elsa jump out as they restart the train. All right, that's what we're going to tell you for the movie. Let's look at some of the strengths and weaknesses of the movie, and we'll go through these quickly. One of the strengths is a strong cast. They're all big names with big spy and disaster pedigrees in the movie.
Now, I agree with the strong cast comment, but I will say it's disappointing for me to think of this as Robert Shaw's last role.
Yeah.
When I think of Robert Shaw, and I think he's a fabulous actor, I think of
Yes.
Grant in From Russia with Love, Quint in Jaws, and Doyle Lonnegan in The Sting, or King Henry VIII in A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah.
And for me, Marenkov is not the same quality of a character to be playing, especially
Again.
for this great an actor in his last role.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
we
was
obviously
ill.
didn't know it was his last role, but still.
But he
it
was ill
disappointing.
through the entire shooting of this movie.
Yeah.
There were some scenes that couldn't even shoot because he was so sick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm going to give him a break on that. But, yeah, you're right.
No, I'm not
Fabulous.
criticizing him. I'm just saying
Fabulous actor,
it's disappointing
right. I get
that
it.
that's the last look you see of him.
Yeah. And, of course, we got some of the Bond legacy in there. We know that Shaw was connected to the Bond history and Cheval. And beyond that, it was not all that Bond-like, I didn't think. Yeah, train cars, boat chases, explosions, shootouts, strategy, and, of course, the Cold War East versus West battles, all that kind of stuff was in there. Oh, that was good, though. All that stuff is good.
And I think the boat stuff at the end kind of reminded me of The Spy in Black. And so it's kind of
Oh,
cool.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. Now
well,
there's
that's
also
good.
there's a Cold War hook in here, obviously. You've got the defection storyline, which we've seen often, and it connects the real world atmosphere and the fears of the late 1970s of Soviet versus US intelligence and the East versus West battles. And we still see those today.
Yeah. Another strength is really the train setting. I like the train settings in spy movies. This confined space creates this natural tension and recalls great spy classics like From Russia with Love, Quantum of Solace, and so many other spy movies from the 1930s forward. 39 Steps, Secret Agent, Lady Vanishes, all the ones we mentioned before. Great stuff.
Now we also have to remember at this time, disaster movies were very popular. So at that time you had Airport, The Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, Earthquake, the Cassandra Crossing, and lots more, right? So here in Avalanche Express, we have another disaster type movie with a spy story wrapped around it. And the avalanche sequence in particular provides large scale disaster action. So it fit for the times.
Yeah.
They did a pretty good job of creating a consistent atmosphere with the many alpine and mountain landscapes, the train travel across Europe, the car chases, all the chases you just mentioned,
Yeah.
all rolled up into one movie. And it had a respectful and international flair while providing an espionage mood. So they did an all right job with that.
Yeah. And the sound effects I mentioned earlier, I mean, the sound effects I thought were excellent from everything we said before, trains, whistles, screeching tires, everything else, helicopters, all that stuff. I thought perhaps the gunshots outside were a little weak. That was my only thing there. But they may have been more realistic given the scope of the landscapes and settings. So what do I know? But I thought,
Yeah, how often have you been out there shooting guns like that?
yeah, all the sound effects, I thought that was the weakest. But I thought in general, the sound effects were right. Cinematography, again, for the most part, was good. I don't think you get overwhelmed by it. thinking, wow, this is just fabulous stuff, but you also aren't underwhelmed by it either. So it is solid.
Yeah, although I would say some of the cinematography of the miniature trains,
Okay. Yeah.
that was to me rudimentary. It is the kindest way I can say that.
All right, let's get to the weaknesses then, because that's what we're starting on.
Yeah, okay. So first one has to be the production troubles. I mean,
Yeah.
they got totally screwed by this thing, right? You have the stuff you can't plan around, like Robert Shaw, Mark Robeson, both dying mid or
Yeah.
post production. So it led to rushed dubbing and an uneven story that you can feel. And for Shaw in particular, we don't get the benefit of his wonderful voice. I
Yeah.
mean, what you heard in Jaws from Rush with Love and the Sting, it just wasn't there.
Right.
And then the dubbing undercuts his performance. So
Absolutely.
they got really burned by, some very unfortunate things in the production of this movie.
Yeah, and then sometimes I thought the scenes seemed to drag on a little too long. The train rides through the snowy mountains, the avalanche. Though I mean, the movie is Avalanche Express, so I mean, you got to have that. You got to have both of those. But I thought sometimes they drag a little bit. And then you got the characters. I thought sometimes you get underdeveloped characters in movies, and I thought we had a lot of underdeveloped characters in this movie. You get typical spy types like the gruff CIA man, a defector whose backstory we get a little of, so that wasn't bad. Soviet villains, like we've seen so often, they lack character development and depth compared to other spy movies. But they did attempt to give us a little bit of a backstory, even for the Elsa and Wargrave relationship. So we have to have, we have to have a little romantic part time that you always love in spy movies. So you had to have that little part in there. But although this was not all that romantic, and we did understand a little bit of their backstory, which I thought was good.
Well, yeah. So there's two things I want to say here about that. First thing is the movie's an hour and 27 minutes.
Yeah,
You make it an hour and 40 minutes, you get 13 minutes of backstory you can add to things to
true.
give the movie more depth. And the second thing is you mentioned, the romance thing in me that I'm not a big romance fan in spy movies. This one doesn't bother me at all. It wasn't front and center.
No,
It didn't seem like it was out of the blue. It just was talking about the history of the characters. So unlike the Heroes of Telemark, where I thought they just totally blew it by putting their romance stuff in here, it didn't bother me here at all because it just kind of seemed to make sense.
yeah, I believe Marvin as Wargrave. He's a stoic, gruff CIA guy. He
Well, he
embodies
also
this.
was 16 years older than Linda Evans.
Yeah, I know. He does look a little old in this movie, actually. But he embodies this professional spy handler kind of guy, this archetype kind of guy. But he lacks depth beyond the duty of responsibility in his role. Like, okay, I'm this kind of a guy. Even in the semi-romantic scenes, and I say semi-romantic scenes, he seems flat or disattached. Now, maybe that is his character, but it seemed watching it a little flat.
Yeah, to me, the question is, was that the character or was that
Yeah,
Marvin's performance? And I'm not
yeah,
sure
yeah.
we know the answer to that.
Right. So, and then the Maximilian Schell, the KGB colonel, he's a charismatic but stereotypical villain again. He adds gravitas to the movie, though the role is basically a one note kind of role. He's wearing gloves all the time as this odd characteristic, as we mentioned. He's good, but another more one dimensional kind of character, not the acting, but the character. Here, I
Well,
think it
see,
was the
I kind
character.
of like the way they did this because to me, there was a certain amount of who's this guy lurking in the shadows? Yeah, we know his name and everything, but we don't really know that much about him. But he's
Hmm.
lurking in the shadows. And why isn't he, since he was a general, why wasn't he having somebody else do his dirty work? So maybe it's just I'm a Maximilian Schell fan. I mean, his
Yeah,
Oscar-winning performance in Judgment at Nuremberg was stellar. So it could
yeah,
be
oh, yeah.
I'm giving him a little more credit than maybe you think
No,
he's
he's
due.
a fine actor. He's a fine actor. I think maybe it's the character. Maybe it's the character. I mean, you got to play the character to give you. So now I think the movie has a little bit of an identity crisis as well. The mix of espionage, thriller, and disaster movie doesn't fully gel, I don't think. It's trying to be both at the same time. And so you get a spy movie that perhaps is not as suspenseful as a real spy classic, like 3 Days of the Condor or The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. or even the early James Bond movies, or any of the Hitchcock spy thrillers like North by Northwest or The Man Who Knew Too Much. And it never really gets the intensity as a disaster epic. So like some that we've mentioned. So I think it gets kind of lost in the shuffle of what am I?
Well, and that's kind of what I was talking about before. All of the setup was spy stuff. Then
Yeah.
they throw this disaster stuff in it, and the train literally goes off the rails.
All right. I like that. All
So,
right.
yeah, and I like the term you used, identity crisis, because I think it's a good way to
Yeah.
phrase the dissonance that we're getting out of it.
Yeah. All right. So it feels at times that Avalanche Express never really successfully establishes its own distinct voice. And that's an issue. It's more like we have seen this or that element of the movie in other spy movies or other disaster movies. And this is just kind of piling them up and sorting them out. That's how I kind of look at it. So it's rather kind of a hybrid identity, though some scenes are very strong in their own right, like the Avalanche scene, the gun battles, and a few others. So some good stuff. Now, we know shortly into the movie what the goal is to get this defector Soviet agent out of the country to the West. So from that point on, the movie more or less leans on spectacle rather than subtle intrigue, I think. And that's an issue. Though there are some twists and subtleties that help make the story better. But I do think it kind of gets stuck there a little bit.
I agree. And that kind of leads into this next one. We're talking about weaknesses, Dan. I think there might be some pacing issues.
Pacing. Yes, pacing issues in a movie. Say it isn't so. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Some parts do drag with long stretches between action set pieces.
I think so too.
There are pacing issues in a movie that's only an hour and 27 minutes long. So you wouldn't think that there'd be drag points in the storytelling. We do get a few instances of them that seem to put the unfolding of the story on hold a bit.
Yeah,
Then
we mentioned.
there are other times where this thing seems rushed with maybe gaps in the story. So the entire train sequence could have been more compelling, like in Murder on the Orient Express,
Yeah.
or even, we've mentioned it a couple times, The Lady Vanishes.
Yeah.
Really good use of trains in espionage movies. And I think they could have done more with that.
All right. Well, given that the movie title is the name of the train, one might have thought that they'd get that right. But okay. All right. Now, here's my other problem. It's hard to really connect with the characters in this movie. The dubbing and the shallow character arcs, I think, prevents us from really connecting with these characters. For example, I really didn't care who might have gotten killed in this action. I really didn't. Though the action was generally good, I didn't really care. Linda Evans, I think, could have had a more powerful role, for example. Instead, we were wondering, is she really a spy, a decoy, a love interest, all of these? What is she? And I think she could have been given a stronger role. She was fine. And I liked her.
She needed more development, especially because she had a fairly central role in this thing.
Yeah.
And they didn't flush her out very well.
That's another issue, I think. And so, whatever. They had many issues in the movie in terms of the circumstances surrounding the filming of it. So, okay, that's a problem. So where does Avalanche Express really fit into this, our cinematic movie can? All right, maybe it's kind of between James Bond and Le Carre kind of movies, right?
Well,
Maybe.
it wants to be.
Yeah, I think it tries to mix Bond style set pieces, explosions, avalanches, train battles, all that kind of stuff, with Le Carre style defection intrigue. By 1979, including Moonraker, 11 Bond movies had been released. So there was plenty for any spy movie in this time period to draw on from the Bond legacy already, and plenty of other spy movies for all of the Hitchcock spy movies, Harry Palmer movies, 3 released in the 1960s, Yipper's File, Funeral in Berlin, Billion Dollar Brain, and others. So Avalanche Express has borrowed a little from each.
Yeah, and I also think, though, that future spy movies did borrow a little from Avalanche Express. So there definitely is a trade-off that this thing didn't just take from what came behind it. Other movies that followed took some of the things from this movie.
Okay. All right. So along the same lines, I think in the movie here, Avalanche Express, there's more style than substance. I think we've been kind of saying that all along. The spectacle is the focus here. The story is straightforward. Get a Soviet defector to the West. Compare this to 3 Days of a Condor, or The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, or Emperor's File, Funeral, all those guys, all those movies. It lacks the political or psychological intrigue and nuances, I think. So, yeah, it's an issue.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because it's so short, and it's so short, I think, because of the troubles that it's known for. This
Yeah.
movie tends to be known more for its troubled production than for its narrative power, and unfortunately, that's the focus.
Yeah. Now, okay, for filming locations, we mentioned some of it was studio stuff, but some of it was filmed in Munich, Germany, Milan, Italy, Venice, Italy, and Casa Maggiore, Italy as well. Avalanche Express does end rather abruptly, which
Yeah.
which I thought was weird. You know, they build, and bam, it's over. It's like, and I'm sure they wanted to get this movie in the can with all the troubles they had. Maybe that was their motivation.
They didn't want
But-
anybody else to die.
Yeah, but I think, okay, it did end rather abruptly. But anyway, I think Avalanche Express is a decent spy movie with plenty of action, good set pieces, good costuming, sound, decent cinematography, with a not so unique storyline, but unique method of getting the Soviet defector to the West. It's worth a watch. Just put the production troubles on the back burner for a little bit and enjoy a decent spy movie. Look for a few nice twists and see if the mission succeeds. There is lots that gets in the way of that, but try it.
Okay, so this was recommended to us by a few of our listeners. And so I'm glad I watched it, but I think a little bit differently than you. I think the problems in the script made this a movie I could skip. Right? Yeah, I feel sorry for them, but there was just too much lacking for this. So for me, if I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to watch a spy movie today, I probably would skip this one.
Okay.
That said, you know, we love it when our listeners give us suggestions of movies to watch. We've got a slight difference of opinion here. Dan,
That's
you're kind
okay.
of like, yeah, it's okay. Well, go ahead and watch it. And I'm kind of like, yeah, go ahead and skip this one. So
Yeah.
we don't always agree with you or with each other on these, but
Right.
keep the suggestions coming. We love watching spy movies regardless of what we think their quality is.
All right, that's a wrap of Avalanche Express. We dropped a lot on you. This has been Dan
And Tom.
of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. We would appreciate it very much if you would subscribe to our show. That helps us keep going. Thanks for spending time with us.